Guten Tag, Horst.
Herr Ripley, it is good to see you again. There is a message for you.
Ah, from May's aunt and uncle in London. Understand Mei Chen's concern for Mother. Would be happy to assist in any way we can. It just might work. Horst, are you familiar with Baron von Seltsam's castle?
Oh, indeed, mein Herr. It is a local attraction.
I'll need transportation.
There is a taxi stand in the next block.
I'd like to buy some marks. Thank you, Horst. Goodbye.
Auf Wiedersehen, Herr Ripley.
The so-called Free City of Danzig, perched precariously between Poland and Nazi Germany. How much longer will it remain free? Gosh, what a peculiar-looking place.
That is Schloss.
What does that mean?
Castle of the Ace of Spades, mein Herr.
Somehow the name fits. Hello, my name is Ripley.
I am called Wolf.
And this, I take it, is Ace of Spades Castle.
Your powers of observation to you credit, mein Herr. But the castle to the tourist is not open. I'm sorry.
I'm no common tourist. Ace of Spades Castle will make a marvelous addition to my gallery of cartoons. Mr. Robert Ripley to see the Baron. I have a letter from him.
From Mr. Albert, mein Herr?
No, it's signed Otto.
Ah, that would be the old Baron, mein Herr. He died in February, I'm afraid.
Not long after he wrote me the letter. He mentions in it he was ill. I'm sorry.
As are we all, mein Herr. The old Baron was well loved, as is his son.
Maybe I better see the son then. It's quite urgent.
Please to wait in the sitting room, mein Herr. Mr. Ripley, von Seltsam. Please, forgive the tennis togs. The third set was more of a struggle than I expected. You knew my father, I believe.
I never had the pleasure of meeting him, I'm afraid, but by all accounts he was quite a fellow.
Indeed. This house alone is testament to that.
He wrote me this shortly before he died.
Ah, you're that, Mr. Ripley. I am also a fan.
Thank you.
First Emperor of China, Master Lu. As you might have gathered, my father was an Orientalist of some note. It's a pity he died before he was able to pursue this line of research. It sounds fascinating.
Do you share your father's interest in the Orient?
Hardly. Where my father's interests ran to the eccentric, mine are much more commonplace.
Tennis?
Sport is my life, I admit it to you. I was captain of the fencing team at Oxford. I leave shortly for Stuttgart to try out the new Otto Union V16 designed by Dr. Porsche.
Ah, the car with that ingenious pushrod in place of overhead cams. I envy you. We have a lot in common. Until I dedicated myself to seeking out the curiosities of the world, I was a sportsman myself. Played some ball, covered many sports as well.
Then I regret that we can have so little time together. Perhaps on my return.
I'd enjoy that. I'm tackling this last quest of your father's on my own.
Ah, but that's marvelous. You'll try to enter this tomb, then?
If I can.
It would certainly make for an interesting adventure. I look forward to reading about it.
It's more than a story for me, Baron. There may be unscrupulous forces at work to plunder the tomb of its most dangerous treasure, the Imperial Seal.
How could such an ancient artifact be dangerous today?
It could be used to unite the Eastern hordes behind a leader thirsting for power.
Mein Gott!
What do you know of the current political situation in the Far East?
Very little, other than it's heating up, much as things are here in Europe.
It must be unnerving to have Herr Hitler and his brown shirts running Germany.
To say the least.
I take it you're not in sympathy then with the Nazi cause.
Mr. Ripley, the Nazis and their strutting counterparts in Italy and Japan are a plague that will soon spread like the Black Death itself. Unchecked, they will lead us one day into the unthinkable. A Second World War.
Would you be willing to part with that unusual zebra skin? It would make a fine addition to my auditorium in New York.
I'm sorry, Mr. Ripley. I'm afraid I can't. It was my father's express wish that this house and its unique accoutrements remain as you see them. And, frankly, I've become quite used to them myself.
I understand. The letter mentions a key to the tomb.
Yes. Is that why you're here?
What can you tell me about it?
Nothing, I'm afraid. When did the first emperor of China reign?
In the 3rd century B.C.
And they had keys back then?
I suspect your father was referring to a key to decode a tablet kept at the Hall of Classics in Peiping. That tablet then holds some secret to opening the tomb.
Then the key my father mentioned is a key to another key?
Something like that.
It sounds incredibly complicated.
Lu planned it that way. The first emperor's seal of office is somewhere in the tomb. Lu had a dream that only when everybody lived in peace and harmony and shared knowledge could certain ancient hieroglyphics on his tablet be translated. Once the time was right, the tomb could be opened, and the power of the first emperor's seal of office could be safely wielded once more.
You have quite a task before you. How can I help?
Did your father leave behind any notes or Chinese artifacts?
Well, he didn't leave any scattered about that I've seen, but this is an unusual house in more ways than one.
How do you mean?
Before I was born, my father gave himself for a number of years to the pursuit of esoteric science, inventions for the improvement of mankind, the philosopher's stone, the secrets of alchemy, the usual.
He wasn't successful in his efforts.
Unfortunately, no. Changing lead into gold would be a handy skill.
Don't I know it?
To assist him in his research, he had a laboratory built somewhere in his house, and although as a boy I recall the occasional unpleasant chemical odor emanating from somewhere, I've never been able to locate it. He lost interest quite suddenly. Oh, it must be almost 15 years ago now.
Did your father have a favorite room where he did most of his work?
Oddly enough, on those rare occasions when he was at home, he spent most of his time in the billiards room. It was his sanctuary. He'd go there of an evening, puff one of his vile cigars, and work, or play.
I take it you don't smoke.
I did, briefly. But despite all the scientists who tell us smoking improves our health, I found it reduced my wind. Not something one can afford on the tennis court or polo field. Perhaps I'm the unfortunate exception to the rule.
Actually, I don't smoke either. Your father played billiards?
My father played everything. Games and puzzles were his passion.
But not yours? A sportsman like yourself?
Games are for children. What I love about sport is the physical endeavor, the strain of the muscles as much as the stretching of the mind, the action, if you will. The measure of physical exertion required to strike a stationary ball with a cue or to advance a backgammon pip is negligible.
The thrill isn't there.
Hardly. My father has a small desk in the billiards room. You're free to explore that if you wish.
Thank you.
I should warn you about the billiards room.
Why? Is it haunted?
Not haunted. Cursed. Say, this might be in your line of country. Have you heard of the Romanov emerald?
The Russian crown jewel? Of course.
What do you know of its history?
It disappeared along with many of the other crown jewels during the Revolution of 1917.
It came into my father's possession in 1920.
The emerald is supposed to be cursed. Any who possess it are doomed to bad luck, failure, even worse. Tsar Peter II, his son Paul, Alexander II, all were slain while it was in their possession. And of course, thanks to the Bolsheviks, Nicholas II met with the same fate.
The emerald has hung like the sword of Damocles above this house for 15 years. I believe it is, at least in part, responsible for my father's own illness and death.
A fabulous jewel like that would make a terrific addition to my auditorium. Unfortunately, my funds are rather limited at present.
If I could, I would present it to you.
If you could?
Despite the fact its evil influence is most strongly felt there, the emerald is not inside the billiards room, at least nowhere I can find. Mr. Ripley, with Hitler's power growing daily, Pomerania may need all its luck to survive. The sooner that stone is beyond our borders, the better.
You want me to have a look round for the jewel?
Exact. Our interesting discussion has already detained me far too long. I must not miss the train to Stuttgart. Feel free to search for this key, as you call it, but also, if you can, find the emerald too. If you do find it, I would urge you to dispose of it as rapidly as you are able, else the curse attach itself to you.
Thank you, Baron, for your hospitality and your help. I'll do what I can.
Fritz, I'm off!
The sofa looks comfortable enough to sleep on. There seems to be something sticking out from underneath it. Goodness gracious, it's a 50 million mark note. Unfortunately, today it's as worthless as Confederate currency. I'm told doctors used these during the Great War as prescription blanks. An impressive collection of books in many languages. Most of them appear to be science texts or about the Orient. Did the Baron give you any instructions about me?
Ja, mein Herr. You may explore the grounds, and you may have access to any rooms downstairs where the old Baron worked. That would be the sitting room and the billiards room. If the old Baron left any notes, they would be most likely in one of those.
Your new master told me about a secret laboratory.
It was built before my time. I do not know where it is, but I doubt it is in the upper reaches of the castle. I would have noticed.
How did the old Baron come to build such an unusual castle?
It was a high-stakes poker game many years ago at the Baron's club. It is said the money on the table for that single hand would rival the treasury of several small nations. The old Baron drew the ace of spades to complete a royal flush and win the hand.
So he built this place to honor the occasion.
It is difficult to forget the story if you live here.
I can imagine. Neptune on, you guessed it, a large ace of spades playing card. A few papers referring to household matters. Mr. Ripley, this interesting item came into my possession quite by accident last year while I was in China. I thought it might amuse you. To the best of my knowledge, it is the cheapest stamp ever struck, worth but 4/1000ths of one of your American pennies. Please accept it with my compliments. I look forward to meeting you in person soon to plan our great adventure tackling the mysteries of the first Emperor's tomb. Signed, Otto, 6th Baron von Seltzow. I would have enjoyed seeing this thing through with you, Baron. I'm sorry it wasn't meant to be. Worth only a fraction of a cent. How wonderful! The billiard table's a beauty. Used to play a little 8-ball myself when I was a lad. The cabinet is closed. Parcheesi, Mahjong, Chinese checkers, and that new game, Monopoly. It's rather fun. I wonder if it'll catch on. There's a drawer in the games cabinet. The ace of spades is missing from this deck of cards. That ace of spades looks slightly different than the rest of the wallpaper design. A vent, probably to draw off cigar smoke. I know I don't smoke, but cigarettes certainly make you look sophisticated. I wonder if they're as good for your health as the scientists claim. A fine Cubano cigar with a gold band. A round hole. Curious. The table suddenly seems to be on an angle. Shut tight. I have a sneaking suspicion it's not going to be as easy to get out of here as it was to get in.